Thank you, Pauline.
That's chilling. Poor guy.
All right. You know, most of the world is thinking that it would be absolutely fantastic if they came up with a cure for cancer, heart disease, and all these good things. And a lot of us realize that, well, they already have cures for all of these. But yet the health and disease industry is such a huge and lucrative business that any CEO that would allow the company to provide those cures would lose his job immediately, because he would undermine the profits of the corporation, and the board of directors would have his head immediately. So for anybody that is still waiting for that proverbial cure for cancer and all these other diseases, just as well forget it, because as long as there are corporations running the world, you're never going to see a cure come out. But you know, there are a lot of solutions for the end resulting effects with our bodies, since we live in a world of cause and effect. That's basically what disease is the end resulting effect of many causal levels. And that's what I'd like to do, is spend a little more time tonight fine-tuning the simplicity of those causal levels, because they are so simple that when we discuss them, at first it'll be laughable at how simple they really are, and that we know them, but we overlook what these causes are. Now, the innate wisdom of the body, when you think about how many years that programming has been evolving and figuring out every way to heal the body from every form of disease, every type of damage. You think about the thousands and thousands of years of these bodies evolving and learning the wars, the battles with people fighting, and you know, it was a little bit barbaric back in time, and it was just commonplace for a person to damage their bodies. And of course, they didn't have all the modern conveniences not too long ago that we have today. And so when you stop and think about how brilliant the DNA is, if you took one cell and you downloaded the information from that one cell, think about a library. And this isn't just a documentary, it isn't a fluffed up with words, it's specific information for survival. They've estimated that you would have a book of 1,000 pages with 600 words on every page. I think that was it, yeah, 600. That's a lot of information. And that all has to do with nothing but survival. And so you'd think, well, now why can't the body heal itself of all the problems that we're developing today? Well, what we don't realize is that because of our modern lifestyle habits, the way we live today, there's about 5 areas of our convenient lifestyle that is responsible for developing the degenerative diseases that are taking us out now. Very, very simple things that we don't even think about. Now, who would ever suspect that a light bulb is one of the causes for our degenerative diseases? How in the world can a light bulb be responsible for helping us to develop degenerative disease?
Sleep.
Sleep and extending the day and wiping out our batteries. Most adults have dead batteries. 150 years ago, do you think anybody would sit there and let a candle burn till 11:30 at night? No. But because of the electric light bulb, and television sets and other electronic components. You think of the radiation and the extended time that we spend engaged in life instead of going to bed with chickens at night. You know, we talk a lot about stress. Stress is another modern day invention. What we just talked about, how we stress ourselves with electromagnetic radiation and how we extend our days till we're totally exhausted. But the competitive lifestyle that we all engage in now, that wasn't that way back 150 years ago even. Everything was so much slower. 50, 60 years ago, life was so much slower.
Seems that way.
And every decade, it's getting faster and faster and faster. And you think about now with the computers, I can remember when I was growing up, if my mom didn't read it from Reader's Digest, and if it wasn't in the encyclopedia, I didn't have any way of answering a lot of the questions I have. Now any question you have at the tip of your tongue, Google will tell you at least 10 different answers for that same problem, instantly. If somebody discovered it yesterday, we know about it today. Well, that's really exciting. It's as exciting as our light bulbs and televisions and everything else, but yet it's another force stressing our bodies and exhausting us. Now the body can heal itself to the degree that it has the energy to do so. But if we're exchanging almost all of our energy for accomplishment, keeping up with the rat race of life, and then being stressed out by extending our days and all the things that we do, that's the reason why the average adult has a dead battery. Things like insomnia. Who would ever believe that that is nothing more than a dead battery? The body doesn't have enough energy to relax and sleep. The nervous system is wired because of not enough energy. So it becomes impossible to heal the body when we stop and think of a few things. Now, there's another very simple thing that we don't stop and realize, and that is, did you know that air conditioning is a major cause for all of our degenerative disease? Would you ever suspect air conditioning being a cause for degenerative disease? Sounds crazy, right? But yet, what do we call the skin? Another term for the skin is the largest organ of elimination in the body. It is supposed to be releasing almost as much waste as the intestinal tract. But every time it gets caught working, what do? We turn the air conditioner down colder and shut it down. Where's all that waste material going to go if it doesn't get out of the body? Well, it's got to be filtered by the liver if possible, otherwise it just loads up in the tissue. Now, the major trash can for the body, of course, is the colon. Here's another problem. Sitting disease. Sitting disease is the major cause for shutting down the main trash eliminating process of the body, the colon. Why? Because we sit in our cars going here to there to wherever. We sit mostly in front of a computer or at a desk most of the time. We sit at our dinner tables. We sit in the evening to watch a movie or whatever. We're sitting all the time, and that weakens the lower back, and when the back gets weakened, it congests, and congested tissue starts to contract and accumulate calcium, moving into spasm, reducing the nerve flow to the colon, creating strictures in the colon. Bang! The major cause for overwhelming the liver and poisoning the entire body. Sitting disease equals auto-intoxication. Who'd have ever believed that sitting disease would be a major cause for the degenerative diseases of today? Now, when you stop and think about it, compare the damages that the body has already learned to overcome. I mean, it's learned to overcome thousands of types of damages and diseases and everything. But now, again, chlorinated water, fluoride, and the chemicals added to our food. And you add to that innocent little vegetable oil, the most inflammatory and major cause for all of our clogged up gallbladders, backed up livers, and heart disease. It's the number one killer in this country is vegetable oil. Who's ever said that? But that's it in a nutshell, because when you clog the filtering system up, and why is it clogged? Because of the lesions and inflammation of the arteries caused by what? Yes, some of the inflammation and lesions are caused by a vitamin C deficiency, but the main issue that is causing the problem with heart disease and everything is the heated, well, not only is heated, but all the vegetable oils, and especially corn oil. So the vegetable oil companies and the margarine companies that are busy pointing their fingers over at the innocent butter, lard, eggs, and basic foods that everybody ate for thousands of years just fine, but mysteriously, the accuser is the guilty party. Cardiologists that go back all the way to the turn of the last century found that as long as people were eating those basic fats, including lard, I mean, they were living off from lard, butter, eggs, all these basic foods, there's practically no heart disease. As soon as they started separating or extracting corn oil was where the whole country started going down the tubes. And then it expanded into margarine, which is basically a colorized form of plastic, and other vegetable oils. And now heart disease is completely out of control here in this country, because everywhere you go and the foods that you buy that are already prepared, fried foods, deep fried foods, and all those things, what do they do it in? Vegetable oil. You go into a grocery store and the largest section of oil is all vegetable oil. All the big 5-gallon buckets and the big gallon jugs and all the largest volumes, it's all vegetable oil. That's the main oil that this country is consuming right now. Maybe there's a connection between the two, huh? Definitely is. Okay? Do you see the difference between the problems that existed over the last several thousand years as the body was evolving its awareness and its abilities to heal itself of all of these problems, and the problems that we have now, the innocent things that we don't even think about? In fact, what do we call them? We call them the conveniences of modern life. But yet those conveniences, if we don't do something to reverse the effects of them, it's impossible for the body to make the corrections. Now, it's only in the last month that I've really started focusing in. As you remember, when I've talked about the causes for degenerative diseases, of course we know that the master cause is human self-destruct, because we're all inspired by what has happened before, and that is clear back the last 3 generations. All the traumatic memories established our expectation of life, which is life is busy beating the tar out of us, and if it doesn't, then we do it to ourselves. There is the foundation of human self-destruct. That's still master cause. And there's 2 physical causes, and that is the pivot of the cranium, and the other is the magnesium deficiency. But the others that I called causal influences, as I reevaluate, I realize, wow, even those, most of those are the effects, like poor digestion and poor elimination. Those are actually effects, they're not the causes. The causes are the sitting disease and the air conditioning and the light bulbs, the loss of energy in the body because of extending our days, all right? So basically what I'm seeing is, okay, after observing these simple reasons of why we are developing disease today. By going one step farther back toward absolute cause, it actually gets simpler. It gets easier. And then we can easily see why we have to do something about this, because here's the big issue. The body can overcome all these problems that it's learned over the last several thousand years, but these that I've presented tonight, if we don't do something specific for each one of these causal issues, it becomes absolutely impossible for the body to turn around the degenerative diseases that are being developed. Okay? That's the difference. And that, I felt that the body chemistry support system was fairly important before, but now I understand why it's absolutely essential. Because that's what the body chemistry support system is the targeted work that each one of us have to do to reverse the effects of the light bulbs, the sitting disease, the air conditioning, and all of that. Now you stop and think about, okay, how do we overcome the effects of exhausted bodies? Okay? Okay, there's a lot of things that we need to do, like realize that we're the rat running on the wheel, and we can reschedule and replan what we do and how we do it. But how do we reverse the ill effects of that? Well, number one, and this is what you find out if you were to take a microphone and give it to the body and say, okay, what is your highest priority? And the body's highest priority is always help me to digest the food, because the body has to convert our life force into digestive enzymes. And guess what? The battery's dead. And if the battery's dead, what is it going to use to develop digestive enzymes from? There's nothing there to do it. Therefore, digestion goes down the tubes. The body's ability to extract the nutrients from the foods that we're eating is poor. And if the body can't break the food down and pull the nutrients out, undigested food residue in the intestinal tract just rots and poisons us. One of the more toxic substances we cycle in the body is undigested protein. Protein, if it's properly digested, is almost magical. All the amino acids, they have very powerful functions in the body. But the undigested protein, and it's bad enough by the time we hit 40, the fact that we don't have enough energy either, or enough hydrogen. And I think that the reason why we don't have enough hydrogen to properly produce hydrochloric acid by that time, there's a statement that a woman told me one time because of how poor she felt her digestion was. And she says, my digestion is so poor I can't even digest water. And I chuckled about it, and I thought about it since then quite often, and I realized most people don't have enough ability to digest water. Because you see, water comes generally as clusters. And if your body can't break the clusters of that water down so that they're single molecules to go into a single cell, you don't hydrate the cells. And when you stop and think about the comparison between grapes and people, they both look, the grape and a baby are plump and round, and by the time both get dehydrated and get old, the grape turns into a raisin and a human turns into a shriveled up old person. They're both dehydrated. And dehydration takes a lifetime. But it isn't necessary. Okay? After digestion, the next thing that the body needs help with is the accumulation of the residue in the intestinal tract and clearing that out. Now, because of sitting disease, if we don't actively open up the nerve flow from the lower back to release the stricture, we're not going to have complete evacuation. And that's the reason why we have to work from both sides. True body chemistry support is supporting the body in the ways that it can't do for itself. And these issues that we're talking about tonight, the body can't do a thing about it. And if we don't do these steps, we're going to suffer the collective result of the work not being done. So we need to do the decongesting of the muscles, spend as little time sitting as possible. A lot of people now start using podiums at their desks. I know a guy back in Austin that he told everybody in his whole company, if you want a podium like I've got on my desk instead of your regular chair and desk, all I gotta do is say and we'll have it in there in no time. But what he does is he'll have his phone at one end and other projects over here. He's just kind of walking back and forth depending on what he's doing. And there's no chair in his way because he threw it out. There's no chair in his office for him to sit in. But if he has a call that comes in, he'll put it on speaker and he'll step back and he'll start jumping on his trampoline while he's talking. And he's asked several people while he's done that, he says, while we were talking, could you tell that I was jumping on trampoline? He's just curious because it would be embarrassing if they were wondering why his voice was going while he's talking. But he's just jumping gently. And he said, no, I didn't have a clue. So anyway, there's things like that we can figure out how to support the body better in these ways to reverse the problems that are natural for our lifestyle today. And another big one, of course, is to figure out all the ways that we're stressing out and come up with solutions, because it's all, what in life really stresses us? What is the greatest stressor in the whole world for each one of us? The little house of horrors on top of our shoulders, right? And we can reprogram that. We can reperceive. It's usually a perception anyway that drives us to do foolishness and self-destruct. And so we need to bring that to a conscious level and realize, okay, since I'm the author of my own life, maybe I can author it wiser instead of quite so overwhelming. Right? Okay. Now what about the effects of chlorinated water and antibiotics? Because of the destruction of those chemicals, the fluids from the colon are going to be recycled into the bloodstream 24 hours a day. And the quality of those fluids are determined by the balance of the bacteria in the intestinal tract. And so when that's been destroyed by chlorinated water and fluoride and the chemicals in our foods and everything that we've been exposed to, that fluid is highly toxic. And that's another main reason why the liver gets so overwhelmed and the body starts accumulating toxic material. In fact, that would be considered similar to the way an automobile would be if you never changed the oil or the filter. That would be a major cause for what they call the natural aging process. That, when the filtering system gets overwhelmed and backs up the lymphatic system, the body starts accumulating more of the acid waste and toxic materials that age us, and that collectively accumulates the substance that degenerative disease is actually made of. And so that filtering system is so vitally important to get cleared. So first of all, we've got to balance the intestinal flora consistently. Move the old waste material out and balance that intestinal flora. Okay? Then beyond that, we need to realize, okay, the blood's already trashed, the lymphatic system's stagnated. Once we start turning all this around, we've got a lifetime accumulation of garbage collected in the body that we got to get rid of in order to get the energy up high enough to be able to reverse the lifetime accumulation of damage that the body didn't have enough energy to be able to heal. So the way that we clean the blood and the lymph, of course, is through the detox baths. In the beginning, when I first put the body chemistry support system together, it was funny. Every once in a while, I'd run into a person and they would be telling me that they were doing the program, but they couldn't understand why they were still feeling this way, and they'd explain how they were feeling. And I'd tell them, well, you're skipping your detox baths. I'd say, how do you know that? I'd have to tell them. Every step of the body chemistry support system is predictable. if you skip one of the steps in the body chemistry support system, the body will raise a red flag. 2 detox baths a week, unless you have the flu or something, then you do it every single day. Make sure that you're eating healthy salt on your food, because the first mineral out through the skin with a detox bath or when you're perspiring is sodium chloride. And if you don't have enough, your skin will shut down and hold everything in to keep you from throwing your electrolytes out of balance. So that's the reason why it's important to have good healthy salt, and then of course the organic sodium to neutralize the acids in the body. But consistently doing those detox baths will ease the burden of the poor liver. It's kind of like taking something and throwing it in the trash can. You never have to see it again. That's the way the liver feels. When you do a detox bath, it thinks, oh my gosh, I don't have to see the same chemicals, metals, and garbage cycling around again. They're gone. Okay. Next step, clean that gallbladder out consistently. Now, the first time that I stated that I felt that everyone needed to do 1 gallbladder flush for each year of your life, I was questioning, thinking, well, maybe that's a little bit extreme. Over the last year or two, I'm seeing that spot on. That's how many we have to do to reverse that lifetime accumulation. And well, I thought it was by accident that we discovered an extreme way of getting the liver clearing, because 2 weeks ago Flower fixed everybody in the office here a super duper magnesium drink. She put 3 tablespoons of magnesium hydroxide, which would probably be equivalent to about 4 tablespoons of milk of magnesia. And what I realized after all 3 of us saw such an extreme success with that gallbladder flush, I got to realizing, you know, you do a gallbladder flush again and again and again, and you get down to the point where you're just getting a little chaff and next to nothing. We were all passing large cholesterol balls again. It's like, where in the heck are these coming from? And then I got to thinking about it the last few days. Because of the huge volume of the magnesium, and then remember, besides creating diarrhea, the other major reason for the large quantity of magnesium is to relax all the bile ducts and cystic ducts of the liver. It relaxed everything so well that balls of arterial plaque, stop and think about it, once the gallbladder is full, by the time we're about 20 years of age, and it starts backing this material up into the liver, I hadn't thought about this before, but realizing that the enlargement of the liver is caused by these balls now accumulating and forming throughout the liver as balls, not just little chaff sticking around in there. It's actually blobbing up. How in the heck are we going to get those blobs out? Well, we figured that one out. Dang! I'll tell you that it was that one gallbladder flush was worth 4 very effective gallbladder flushes.
Did she tell you? Yeah.
The
No.
next day she goes, I have a confession to make.
She told us maybe the next day. But I was just passing through the hallway and ready to go and do body work on somebody, and she just handed me this glass that looked like milk. And I drank it down right quick, didn't think anything of it, got to work, and then all hell broke loose. Literally.
15 hours.
Oh my God.
Remind me of the Energizer Bunny. It just kept going and going and going, and every time. The funny thing is, it cleared the intestinal tract so fast that after about 5 hours through till noon the next day, I don't know about the others, but I was just passing clear liquid and cholesterol balls. I mean, there was no mixing with fecal matter at all. It was just toilet bowl with clear water and
Yeah.
cholesterol balls all over the place. More than, each passing was like one of the best gallbladder flushes I've ever done.
And this is after all the gallbladder flushes that you
That we
have done.
every Wednesday
Wow.
Wednesday.
Yeah. And that's when I realized that high level of the magnesium hydroxide released those blobs from the liver, not the gallbladder. The gallbladder, for the last couple months, just on the fly, we've been doing the gallbladder flush. There for a while, we were doing it every single Wednesday. And, we got down to the point where it was just a little chaff each time, maybe a few the size of rice or something. This time it was marbles and a couple of them even a little bit bigger.
We want to stay
Handful.
at that recipe.
Handful.
We are all three of us.
It's called the turbo flush.
Are we all gonna do that now, or is that, are you still
You're more
experimenting?
than welcome.
It's a little bit, I found that it was we got to the point to where it wouldn't even bother us to do a gallbladder flush. It was just like, no big deal. This one made me feel a little bit uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but the results was well worth it. I would never suggest this flush using that much of the magnesium hydroxide for the first gallbladder flush or 2 or 3. But after you got about 4 or 5 of them under your belt, then I would say, okay, hammer it good. Because it would take about 4 or 5 gallbladder flushes to get the gallbladder clear and get the gallbladder to start shrinking. Doing the rolling the upper back with the 6-inch foam roller. But then once the gallbladder is strong enough to really contract and clear, and the liver, by doing the rolling of the upper back, it's going to strengthen the liver as well. And so you hit it with that magnesium hydroxide and you're going to see some serious results. Yes, ma'am.
So you didn't have to do the olive oil?
What's that?
No, we did.
You did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but the magnesium is so powerful that by the time you took the oil, everything came unglued.
So that's a different kind of magnesium then?
It's the same thing as milk of
Oh, same
magnesia,
thing,
but
okay.
we get it in powder form.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more concentrated.
You could do the same thing with the citrate,
Yeah.
just
Just
3.5, 4
Do you
tablespoons.
think the citrate would be as powerful?
I do, don't you?
But you'd have to do what, 4
Yes.
tablespoons of that?
3.5 or 4.
Increase 1 or 2 more tablespoons.
Yeah, 3.5 or 4 tablespoons of the citrate would probably do the same
Try it
thing.
out.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, until we effectively get that filtering system cleared, keep in mind that that is the main reason why high blood pressure exists and people have kidney problems. When the liver can't filter the food waste from the blood, it's going to throw the burden onto the kidneys. But the kidneys can't handle it because they were not designed to be livers. The work of a kidney is more like chemistry regulation, pH balancing, more important work, not just filtering garbage from the blood. And their bodies can't handle it. The food particles, when they're forced to filter those out of the blood, will clog their body because they don't have the same ability to release that the liver does. The liver was designed to take those particles out of the blood, especially when a person has leaky gut, which is quite common nowadays. You can have all this unusable food residue cycling in the blood, and the liver is designed, it can handle that. It's very difficult, but it can handle it, and then it releases it into the gallbladder. When everything's working properly, of course. But nowadays, with the gallbladder being full and backing the liver up, by the time a person develops leaky gut, the whole body gets trashed, because if the liver can't take it out, what else is going to happen to it? That's what they call congested tissue. You go to a massage therapist because muscles hurt and everything, they squeeze that garbage out of the tissue. Where does it go from there? Loads the blood in the lymphatic system, cycles around a few times, and then tucks back into there if you didn't do your gallbladder flush. So anytime you get any sort of body work done, the best thing you could do is run home as quickly as you can and do a detox bath and pull it completely out. Otherwise, it's going to be back in the same weakened tissue that it was squeezed from. Okay? Okay. And then the final step, of course, is loading the body with the nutrients that is lacking because of the years of processed foods and soil depletion. You know, when you really stop and think about the farmlands, pretty well all over the world now, they used to use the organic matter, and they would put it back onto the land, and worms would turn it into topsoil. There aren't any worms in any of the farming soils nowadays, except in organic farming, where they go back to the old practice. You go out into any of the commercial fields and you won't find a worm anywhere. Even if it was after a huge rain, you won't find any worms because there's no more organic matter in the soil. What they do is they add the amount of potash, nitrogen, and potassium that the plants require to just plump up and look like a vegetable. But the trace minerals, they're missing. The magnesium, it's not in the soil anymore. And the humus, the sticky material in good soil, it's not there.
That's why the food doesn't taste good either.
That's why the food doesn't taste good. And so in the future, what we need to do is realize that we've got to get back to a natural way of putting the organic matter into the soil and getting worms to break it down and turn it back into that sticky humus. That's what makes the vegetables and everything taste good and have all the nutrients in them. A lot of people think that the difference between organic and regular store-bought vegetables is just because of the avoidance of pesticides in the organic. A more important thing is the mineral content. You know, we could take detox baths and get rid of the pesticides, but you can't come up with the minerals that are lacking in the regular vegetables. In fact, if you stop and think, well, I might be able to save about 10% by purchasing vegetables that are not organic, well, remember that you need about 10 times more of those to equal the same amount of minerals in organics. It's not worth the money. It's organics is always the cheaper. Even if it's a little bit more expensive, it's much cheaper than the regular vegetables because you have about 10 times more minerals, and then you don't have to take so many detox baths. Okay? Now, is it real? Was I able to get it clear enough? Why, no matter how healthy a person is being by taking their supplements and getting all these treatments, natural treatments and everything, do you see now why everybody's still dying of degenerative disease? There's this little handful, five little issues that if we don't do these things, if we don't take our detox baths, if we don't enhance our digestion, besides taking the plant enzymes before each meal, we need to remember why God gave us all these teeth. Chew, chew, chew. Get that food broken down, especially the raw vegetables. But if we do these steps, enhance the digestion, clear the intestinal tract, rebalance the intestinal flora, clean the blood and the lymph through the skin with the detox baths, and continuously do the gallbladder flushes, and with our exercise, move that waste material from tissue storage into the pathways of elimination and move them right on out. If we keep doing these things consistently, the body will slow down on metabolism or the breaking down of tissue and the replacement. Now, we've heard it said about automobiles, a clean engine burns less fuel. Well, think about the human body. If we stop poisoning the body to death, if we slow cellular destruction, we won't have so many cravings. That's the main reason for cravings, besides the candida load, always craving carbohydrates. The main reason besides that for cravings is the radical, rapid cellular destruction. We have to replace this whole body. They say that we replace the majority of the body every 11 months. A lot of people I know are replacing their bodies much faster by forcing destruction, cellular destruction, through being too toxic. And so by clearing all this excess out, cleaning our filters and doing these steps, we slow metabolism down to where we become more fuel efficient, and the body becomes healthier because it's not repairing and rebuilding itself with a certain volume of sewage. Because really that's what's happening. If the blood is loaded with this waste material, unusable food residue and the chemicals, metals and everything, it's replacing tissue cells with sewage. Not a good idea. Okay?
It's a bad visual.
Effective though. Bad, but effective. Yes, ma'am.
The candida, you mentioned something about candida that makes you crave carbohydrates.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little more?
Yes. Fungus, cancer cells, and all these other little fungal sludge suckers, they really love sugar in any form. And carbohydrates are very quickly converted into sugar, glucose, and they just love it. And their survival depends on your willingness to support them by acting on those cravings. They all have little cell phones. All candida have little cell phones, and they phone the brain. They say, hey, we need more sugar down here. That's what you call a craving, okay? It's all these little guys with cell phones inside your gut. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I've heard that, and I do use a Manuka honey because it's supposed to be like antibacterial and have a lot of benefits for the body. But I've really been trying to take that out because I like it with hot lemon water, and then I put a little cinnamon with it. But now I've been replacing it with your xylitol or the ER one.
Erythritol.
And yeah, and so I think what I've done is better, but yet I've heard really good things about Manuka honey, and I hate to give it up because I do like the taste of it sometimes with almond butter.
Okay, it's kind of like a person with cold sores and herpes. They find that they have to lean a little heavier toward the lipase. What am I trying to say? Instead of the arginine, they need lysine to get the balance right so that they don't keep having breakouts. That is like a necessity for the condition. Okay, as long as we have the biofilms in the intestinal tract, we have to stay over here and keep the sugar away from them. Well, since we came up with the new 21-day and the 6-day biofilm flush, now what we're doing is we're declaring outright war on the biofilms, the little fort that hides the candida and allows them to keep reproducing. Instead of trying to starve them out, we kick them out and shred their little castle. And once you get the upper hand of that, and two, keep in mind that the most powerful tool that you can come up with against funguses, cancer, and all these parasitic life forms is high vitality. If you can get your vitality high enough, none of them can exist in your body. And that's why I keep stating that the goal, the absolute goal for everyone, is to create a level of health where disease can't even exist. And once you get, vitality is kind of the barometer that tells how you're doing. When you have overall vitality way up here, parasites, candida, none of that can exist in the body. The molds and funguses and everything. And so what we need to do is not develop a new uncomfortable lifestyle habit for the rest of our lives, because it's only a temporary time. Then you want to go back and enjoy your honey and not worry about it, and enjoy some of the foods. I know a lot of people would like to sit down and have a glass of wine before their meal and things like this and not have to worry about being overrun by fungus. Well, the shorter the time can be between where you are and when you're candida free and high vitality, the closer you can follow these steps and the more consistent, you move faster toward that goal. And then you find that new balanced way of living that really feels right to you. And you're not sitting there thinking, oh, I better not do this because I'll have a candida breakout, or I might be moving toward diabetes or whatever. The main thing is we have been lied to for the last 100 years, being told that we're glucose burners, which isn't true. When you stop and think of the caveman as kind of being the foundation of our ancestry for eating and other things, well, the biggest deal is man isn't a real fast runner, and out in the wild, he didn't get to eat that often. We got to keep that in mind too. He ate every once in a while when he could outsmart something, but he was usually the victim in this scenario a few hundred years ago. And so, fasting is what the body is more accustomed to. And then, of course, there's two types of fuel. There's the carbohydrates and there's the fats. And the body does much better with fats as the fuel. And then, of course, all the vegetables we can eat. And then, if we're not dealing with candida and all these other sugar issues, well, then fruit is a great medicine. And especially if it's organically grown, and especially berries. Berries are like jet fuel for the body. The body loves it. You take blueberries, and the brain couldn't be happier. So basically, we don't want to structure our lives according to conditions that should only be temporary. So let's get these things straightened out, so we're no longer honoring funguses and things that shouldn't be in the body. Yes, sir.
You know how your intuition is continually stating to you that you're correct in 1 week, for every year that we've lived, we should do a week of the gallbladder flushes.
Uh-huh.
Well, is there an equivalent, in your opinion, to how many biofilms one might do? Granted, we're all different. We've stored up probably different amounts of sugar and things.
Exactly. How low is your overall vitality? Like if we had a magic wand of some sort, and we could test the overall vitality of the body, that would be a real clear clue.
You got one of those?
No, I don't. My wife is the closest instrument that I have to that. Overall vitality, how, actually that's mostly it right there, because a person that is so overrun with parasites, the battery is so close to being dead. That's the reason why they were able to overgrow like that. Vitality is everything. The energy of the body is number one. And if we have all this acidic, rotting food waste in the body, it just short circuits our energy production systems. When the liver gets overwhelmed and it backs up the lymphatic system, it just shuts energy production way down. We got to get these little generators going again. And the only way that we can do that is get the lymph moving. And in order for that to happen, it's got to have somewhere to go. So we got to provide it a clean liver, gallbladder, and intestinal tract, and pull as much of it out through the skin consistently as we can. And as we reduce the quantity of acidic lymphatic fluids from the body, we take that back pressure away from the cell so that the mitochondria can start reproducing again, start producing energy. We balance the sodium and potassium around the cell so that it can start that movement again in the individual cell. Those are two vital methods that every cell in the body can be reverted back again to energy generators. Two very important ways where our normal lifestyle and what we've talked about tonight shuts those down. And that's another reason why by the time we hit 40, besides overextending and using up the lifetime accumulation of energy in the body, it's also, by that time, we've pretty well started shutting down the energy production throughout the entire body by stagnating the lymph.
When I almost wanted to ask, what is lymph exactly? And then you said acidic lymphatic fluid. Is
Very good clarification. We should talk about that. There's about 3 times more lymph in the body as there is blood. Lymph is a clear, sticky fluid, like sometimes when you skin yourself, just clear liquid comes out and it's kind of sticky. That's lymph. There's about 3 times more of that than there is blood. And it's designed to wash all the acid waste away from the trillions of cells in the body. That's its job. It's carrying acid from all the tissue cells. And it brings it all the way up through the body, right up here under the collarbones, dumps that into the bloodstream for the liver to filter it out. And the body chemistry to neutralize it. But now here's where we get in trouble too. It's not only the gallbladder and the liver backed up that causes the stagnation of the lymph, but if the body is excessively acidic, the brain isn't going to let us dump that lymph into the bloodstream because it'll pull the pH down and that could kill you. That's where eczema, psoriasis, and all these skin disorders come in. It's the brain protecting the body from being killed. Skin disease is the solution over death. If it wasn't for the skin disorders, if there's some way to stop the skin from releasing that acid waste, the person would die. So they should celebrate the skin problem and get to doing their gallbladder flushes. Okay? There are a lot of conditions that are just natural results of this clogging process that we've been talking about tonight. And it's like if the medical model comes up with a cure for the common cold and flu, then there's going to be epidemics of degenerative disease all over the place. Everybody will be dying because colds and flu are the body's natural method of dumping this acidic sludge to reset so that it can get back in control. That's the reason why flus usually come along after the holidays and after the stress of holidays, when everybody's basically exhausted and the body's exhausted by too many of the wrong foods. The battery is just close to being dead. The body is overly acidic. So the body says, okay, it's enough, now it's time out. And so the body drops down and starts dumping through every method that it can. If you looked at the blood during a cold or flu or any of these cleansing modes, it would always look the same. Yes, ma'am.
So is that why like the daily celery juice is just like a natural alkaline? I can't say that word.
Sodium.
That's the body's number
From the
one
celery.
choice,
Okay.
is the organic sodium in
From-
celery and other vegetables. That's
To
how
create an
it,
alkaline system.
yes, and that will provide a buffer, and the number one storage site in the body for the organic sodium is the bile. So if a person has gallstones or a thickened gallbladder wall, or if they're having gallbladder attacks, all of those are indications that they're lacking that organic sodium. And that is another reason why we need to take the healthy salt on our food, because that will maintain the electrolyte balance in the blood. Then the body doesn't have to pull on that reserve of alkalizing minerals just to maintain the blood levels of
So
alkalinity.
it's a celery juice in the morning important.
It
It's a
is
big one.
very important, very important. And avoiding the chlorine and fluoride as well, because those are two other reasons why the little arterial plaque coagulates. A deficiency of organic sodium is the main reason, but these other toxic metals also cause a coagulation. And that's all of your buildup in the arteries, heart disease, all those problems are because of the coagulation. They talk a lot about cholesterol. 95% of everything you've ever heard about cholesterol you can forget about, because all that matters is your body has to have cholesterol, and if you inhibit its production, If you stop the liver from producing all that the body needs, you're inhibiting your own health, and especially your vitality. All that matters is take out the trash. The oxidized arterial plaque that builds up in the gallbladder and the liver, that's what's got to be removed. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk a little bit more about self-destruction?
Self-destruction, the master cause of all humans' disease. Well, we all, as adults, we all know that we're self-destructive, but the main thing is we don't know where it originated. But the real cause for human self-destruct is we're being inspired by cellular memory. Not only cellular memory, but what we carry in our brain, the memories that we carry there. That establishes a lowered expectation of life. We always hear that life gives us exactly what we expect, no more and no less. And that's what establishes our expectation of life, is the traumatic memories that will go back even 3 generations. Is that clear enough, or is there something else about it that is confusing as to why we do the things that we do? There's another aspect of it is when we know what we know, why do we do what we do? Family habits, traits that we gather from growing up. You know, we oftentimes don't think about it, but from just before birth until we're 7 years of age, our brains are in a state similar to total hypnosis. Everything that we're exposed to, we are sponges. We just take it in. That's why little kids can learn 2 different languages before they're 7 years of age, and it's not that big of a deal. You get us adults and it's like, holy cow, that ain't going to happen. Okay? It's because at that age, it's just going right into a recording studio, and everything that they're exposed to becomes a part of their program. And we all run off from that program that was recorded before we were 7 years of age. All of that goes directly into the subconscious mind, which controls 95% of all of our decisions and everything that we do. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare everybody there. Sometimes facts get scary. 95% of our lives are the result of the programming that took place up to the age of 7.
The audio from a couple weeks ago would expand on the whole thing too, right? I mean, the one that he sends out, you know, with the email, that covers it pretty good, the self-destruction.
All right.
Because you nailed it a couple weeks ago.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And you gave tools too about how to combat it, obviously, of course.
Good. All right. Anything else that I didn't get completed with for tonight's class? Everybody clear of why it's foolish to do all these treatments of the symptoms of disease before you do these 5 steps? Until the 5 steps of body chemistry support are followed, it doesn't matter what other treatments a person does. These 5 will undermine them. The last one, of course, is making sure that you get enough nutrition. We were quite surprised, but what we're doing right now is we're fine-tuning the synergy of the ingredients in the products. And I was a little bit disappointed to find that we needed to take the flower pollen out of our essential light, because flower pollen, as we know, is one of the highest energy foods on the planet. But the problem was, when you put it together with other great ingredients, without a synergy, it pulls the energy of the whole down. And it's kind of like about 50 years ago, the main supplements were kelp, alfalfa tablets, brewer's yeast, wheat germ, things like this, whole food extracts. And the body did great on those, because if you think about each ingredient or each food concentrate, each has an exact frequency. if you measured that out, there's I know of one person who is such an exact dowser. He did it as a geologist. That was his work, to dowse, to find rock formations and things that are beyond the eye, the vision. And he became so accurate that he could take pretty well any substance and create a 10 to 12 number frequency to show how exact everything is with a frequency. And he would put everything into numbers to where you could actually take that number. It's kind of like radionics and other things. You program that number into a frequency machine, and it would be, to the body, that exact frequency would be exactly the same thing as if you took the supplement. Okay? Everything, when the body takes food in, that's basically what it does when it breaks it down. The energetic frequency that it takes from that substance is what it uses. It's not the physical substance. It's the energy of the digested, delivered substance. Well, the problem is, about 20, 30 years ago, the industry started figuring out, wow, what we can do is take, instead of these whole foods that are so cheap, and you even make them into tablets and whatever, you mark them up a little bit, and you can't make enough money off of it. So they decided, okay, well, what we could do is we can separate all the vitamins out and all the minerals, and then we can put them together the way that we want and sell them as supplements, or each of the isolated, and people can take 5 bottles, put them together, and take them all at the same time to get all your nutrients. But once you isolate these things and then put them back together, you figure, okay, each one has its own exact frequency, and you put them all together, and guess what? You don't have a combination of those frequencies. You have a Franken frequency now that the body says, holy cow, what in the world is that? I don't even recognize that. I don't know what to do with this substance. Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you don't have a synergy among even whole food items. And so the brain says, oh man, that would be great if you put this together with that and this and that. But if they don't like each other, if these food extracts do not harmonize, they're not going to do well in your body either. And so when I found out that that high vitality in the flower pollen was pulling the whole energy of the essential light out, we had to sacrifice that one. But all of a sudden, we went from a full cup of essential light down to a couple tablespoons because of the power of synergy. Now, as you probably, those of you that have been following what we've been doing the last few months probably think, well, somebody in the formulating department has got a screw loose or he's crazy or something, going from one extreme to the other. But what we're trying to do is get everything so simplified to where pretty soon we could have a program that will be the foundation for the true health insurance for the future. Because if we get all these details down to where basically one size fits all, and it's that simple to where all you do is just keep the intestinal tract clearing, the gallbladder and liver and the blood and lymph, keep all these pathways cleared, and then provide the nutrients that the body can recognize and take care of all of its needs, to where your focus is into life and not like everybody else being involved in the game of illness. Because that's really what it is. It's a game. It's a money-making game, and you're not making any money at it. You're the milk cow. Okay? And one day I would love to see this whole industry collapse. I know it seems like, well, isn't this our business? Hey, I'll happily go do anything else. I don't believe that a huge industry should be developed around suffering of humanity. And that's basically the driving force of this industry. And I would like to see that end, and only what we need provided along with the education and an understanding of why we need this and how to implement it and then everybody just follow the program, get healthy, and live life. Better idea? Okay, any other questions about what we talked about tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Collagen. What do you know about collagen?
Collagen. Well, where would you want the collagen in your body? What is most important to you for collagen?
Elasticity of the tissue,
What tissue specifically?
vessels,
Hmm?
walls, vessel walls.
The arteries?
Yes.
Okay. And the skin?
Mhm.
Okay. You know, it's kind of implied that the quality of our skin is determined by how much collagen our bodies can produce. And of course, the collagen is made up of vitamin C and amino acids. But besides the skin being the largest organ of elimination, what else is it? It's the largest muscle in the body. You ever think of the skin all over the body as being a muscle? It's the largest muscle in the body. How do you exercise this large muscle?
Cold water.
Cold water. That's it. Cold water. Or just cold. And without exercise, and a great example of this is you go out to the desert and look at most people. Nobody has exercised skin. Most everybody that has been there for over 10 years has paper thin skin because it never gets exercised. Most of them are sitting in mineral spas or else sunning themselves in the sun. They're always too warm and the skin never gets a chance to contract. Anybody ever jump into ice cold water?
Ice cold showers.
Ice cold showers? What happens to your skin? Just tighten, dry it up, right? That is the best way of developing more collagen in the skin and the capillaries is with cold water. The ideal, if you have access to a Swedish plunge, to be able to go from the jacuzzi into a Swedish plunge, back and forth a few times each day. Very powerful exercise for the skin. In fact, if you get into the cold plunge, which will be about 52 degrees, and you stay underwater for about 30 seconds holding your breath, by that time the skin on your whole body will be so tight that it's difficult to move. And then you realize, oh my gosh, the skin is a muscle and it just tightened down. If we could exercise the skin every day like that, you'd have thick skin. You wouldn't feel so chilly. The reason why most Southern Californians feel chilly when it's just a comfortable temperature is because the capillaries are so close to the surface of the skin because the skin is so thin. So you actually feel it because the skin isn't thick enough. Exercise it, thicken it up. Take a whole food type vitamin C. Make sure you're digesting your proteins real well, and you'll develop more collagen for the arteries and the skin. The arteries, of course, would need more bioflavonoids to make sure that they're strong and healthy. That's one of the main things they need. Okay?